in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, my name is Jo. Thank you for joining us today. We're just about to get started, but just before we do that, I would love it if we could just check in with you all to ensure that you can hear us loud and clear. At the top right of your screen, for those people that haven't been on one of our webinars before, there's a little box and you can raise your hand there. It's sort of, I think it's a little, my screen's a little bit different, but there's something there that says raise your hand. So if you could just click on that so we can get some raised hands and make sure everyone can hear me clear as a bell, that would be fantastic. Let's just see if we're getting any responses to that. Carly, are you getting any hands up there?
Good to go.
Oh, great. Thanks, Carly. Excellent. As we go through today, everybody, please, we love this session to be as interactive as possible. The more that you interact, the more that you will get out of it. So we'll be asking some questions, and we're actually doing an activity today on our session, which will take a good few minutes. So you definitely need to be interacting and doing that there. We'll also be asking for your ideas and feedback. By you doing that, it gives us something to go from, but it also helps you to be able to articulate even more around what we're talking about. If you're asking questions that are relevant, so smart questions around what we're talking about, that means that you're understanding it to a level that maybe you didn't before. So if you do have any questions or information or feedback as we go, please feel free to pop it into the chat box that you can see at the bottom of that screen square on the top right of your screen, and we would love to read those as we go. If we don't get to all of your comments, then please forgive us. Sometimes we've got quite a few people on the call again today, so which is fabulous. But it just means that sometimes we don't get to all of them, but we do really appreciate them, that you popping that in, because it really helps you guys be involved in this, because it's not about Kylie now, it's all about you guys and what you're getting out of it. So does anyone have any questions before we start our Week 8 Life Languages webinar this week? Just getting a few hellos, welcomes. So that's fantastic. We will get started then. So welcome, and thank you very much for taking the time for you today. Carly and I, we were just chatting before the webinar today, and we're just absolutely loving these webinars so much. And even more, we're loving conversations as well that we're having with you guys after the webinars during our choice sessions that many of you have been taking up every single week. We offer these choice sessions at the end of every week to be able to, or to enable you to just take the webinar or the information that you have learnt and implemented in your life from what we share with you today. And people take advantage of those choice sessions so that they can take that to the next level. So that's been fantastic. We're also loving the feedback and the emails we're getting from Facebook and also via the phone calls you guys are making to us. So thank you very much, and please keep them coming. It's really great for us to know that we're on track and how we can improve, because it's all about Carly and I adding as much value as we possibly can to you guys. Now, we know how busy you all are, and to have you guys go out of your way and give us feedback really means a lot to us. We've been getting some really specific emails lately about the changes that people have been making, particularly people that have been on the call for a lot of the 8 weeks that we've been going for now. So congratulations to you all, and thank you so much. It really makes it extra worthwhile for Carly and I as well when we're getting that information. We had a really good response as well to Carly's exceptional special deal that she offered last week, which was the special e-disc report. So thank you to Carly for that as well. That was super generous. I know it takes a lot of time for her to organise that, so because we got such a great response as well, it was really great to show that many of our listeners got a lot out of it, and that many of them really enjoyed the report. So that was fantastic, Carly. Thank you. So how is everybody feeling today? It's very exciting here. As you hear what we say today about life languages, you're going to so easily see the changes that you can make in your life to be more resourceful immediately. The thing about language is it's something that most of us use every single day, so it's a really it's like a really easy first step for you to make changes in. So I trust you're going to get loads out of this webinar and appreciate the value that you'll get from the insights you gain today. So today is all about discussing the keys that will really resonate you, particularly if you're in a stage in your life or business or career where you're ready to take things to the next level, but maybe the way you language your world is holding you back, and maybe you didn't realize that before. Now, Kylie and I, okay, here we go. Here's the usual, my slide's not moving, so just give me a moment, and any second you'll see a beautiful photo of Kylie and I popping up. Kylie and I started these webinars, we started working together a long time ago now, and we decided to pop some webinars together to help people really be able to crash through conscious and unconscious barriers to excellence. It's taken us quite a while for us to be able to really make some headway on our lives. Here we go. There's the beautiful picture of Kylie and myself. So we really, because it took Kylie and I a while, once we worked out the keys and all of these, many of these special things that we're talking to you about week by week, we realized that if we can share these things with people, then it's going to really save you guys so much time. So it's all about improving your lives, your businesses and your careers, and because it took us such a long time, we just want to get you guys there so much faster. So week by week, Kylie and I sharing the learnings with you guys and giving you tools, it just took us such a long time to do. And we're going to continue doing that through until the 11th of July. So we'd love it if you could join us for the next couple. We're up to exceptional 8 now, so we're flying through them. And we've still got heaps of amazing information to go over the next couple of weeks. So Kylie, how are you going today?
Doing really well today. I've got a little bit of a cold, so I'm a bit snuffly. So it's probably a good thing I'm on mute today. Yeah.
Excellent. We'll look forward to hearing the sneezes.
That's all right. I'll make sure I mute myself so no one else gets it. But I'm really excited to listen to what Jo has to say today. There's some really great content in it, and I know that you're going to get so much out of it. So before I sneeze, I'm going to pass you back to Jo.
Excellent. That's definitely a good cue. All right. Thanks, Kylie. Thanks for joining us today. So, guys, I want you to think for a moment about when you interact in your everyday situations and you're building relationships with everybody you meet every single day. Have you ever considered why you just click with some people and with other people you just don't? Have you ever thought about why you think and act in certain ways that are very different from those around you? It all comes down to what we call our own internal representational systems, or our IRs. And basically this is how we represent our world using our senses. Now we have our senses to rely on when we're processing information, and the senses that we have are on the slide that you can see in front of you right now. The main ones that we talk about are visual, audio, or auditory and kinesthetic, but we'll have a look at all of the senses so that you know how you do interpret your world. Obviously it's one of the key ones that a lot of people in our society are. They're very visual people, and we all use visual, which is basically what we see in our world. And auditory there is the way that we hear our world. Olfactory is our smell, the smells that we experience as we go every day. The kinesthetic is what we feel or sense from our world. Gustatory is actually the taste. I think what we state there. It should be taste. I apologise for that. And auditory digital is what we tell ourselves. Now, what this actually means from you is that most of us are actually going to be interpreting our world in all of these ways, but we will all have what we call a primary way of representing our world. And generally that will be visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, or even AD, which is the auditory digital. So when we're making sense of our world, we will be focusing on one of those more than the others, and people around you will be using one of the other representational systems, or possibly the same one that you're using. So when something just clicks, we might, if we're kinesthetic, then we might feel that it's good. If we're a visual person, then we would see what you mean. If we were auditory, then we might, it would be clear as a bell to you. And also some people are also, as I said, auditory digital, which means that they want to know how things actually work. And we're going to talk about the similarities and differences of those as we go through today. So all of us use a combination of modalities when communicating with ourselves and others. There are primary senses, and they're called modalities as well, that influence how we learn, also how we experience the world around us. So understanding these modalities or these senses enables you to be able to understand how you process information and also understand how others are interpreting their worlds around them and what they are experiencing, which is going to be different to what you've experienced or what you've been experiencing. And as I said, so we will call, these terms are quite interchangeable: modalities, senses, and representational systems. The three core sense preferences that people have are the visual, audio, and kinesthetic. So today we're going to show you, which would be visual, how important it is for building rapport and understanding the true identity of others, and how to actually use your language and rapport to create change in your life. We're going to look at some of these in more detail, but before we do that, I thought it might be a really good idea for us to have a look and take a few moments to do an activity to work out what your actual preference is. So you're going to work out your primary mode or modality, and so then as we go through today, when I'm talking about different modalities, you're going to be picking up even more information. So guys, if you can grab the workbook that Kylie emailed through to you this morning, there's actually a 3-step system on the workbook, and we're going to take a good few minutes to do this. So I know it's one of those things where we're going to stop everything, we're going to focus on it, but I think it's a really, really great idea for you to be able to identify what you are before we talk about any more, because that way you're going to be able to take so much more out of what Kylie and I are sharing with you today. So if you can go to page 1 of your workbook, which is the Ultimate Steps to Self-Mastery Worksheet, Week 8, Life Languages. And at the top you can see that there is a quote from a guy named Milton Erickson. We'll be talking about him today. He had a high impact on people understanding all about these modalities as well. And he says anything is possible in the presence of rapport. And like I said before, you know how sometimes you just click with somebody and you might even just met them then, and you feel like you know them for a lot, you've known them for a while, or you just get along with them so naturally. So much more is possible in that relationship than if you meet somebody else and you just you don't understand the way they're speaking, they just don't click with you at all. Obviously, there's so much more room to move and the foundations for a great relationship, whether it's business or personal, if you actually have that rapport, if you actually get them. So I think that's a really, really relevant quote for us to have a look at today. So let's have a look at our preferred representational systems. This is just a little test. There's no pass or fail. You don't need to worry about that. And it says at the top, of the 4 representational systems of visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and AD, auditory digital, we tend to use one over the other, and that's what it's all about today. This becomes our preferred or primary representational system. And as we finish this exercise in a few moments, you're going to be very, very clear on what your representational system is. So for each of the following statements, please place a number next to the phrase. So the first question we have there is number 1, I make a choice when, and then there's a whole bunch of answers. There's 4 answers, and next to those, you will put number 4 against the one which is almost always the way that you would think, so the one that really clicks with you the best. So I make a choice when it feels right to me, I hear it and it sounds right to me, I see it and it looks great, and I review it and it fits my criteria. So firstly, what I would love you to do is put in 4 against the one that really is right for you. And then within that same question, put 3 next to the one that you think you do often, but less often than 4. And then number 2, which is the sometimes, and 1, which is almost never. And obviously there you're getting a clear running of which one you use most often and which one you use least often. So as you can do that, and everybody on the call, I'd really encourage you to do this right now as we're doing it, because obviously we're taking the time to do it now. And we always have less time to do things when we get off the call. It's going to make so much more sense to you when you have this and you're really clear on it. Question 2 is when discussing an issue, I'm persuaded by how convincing the other person sounds, really seeing the other person's point of view, how reasonable the individual makes the point, and my own gut feeling. So again, put those in there, 4, 3, 2 and 1, next to the ones that are relevant to you, most relevant to least relevant to you. Question 3 is when I meet someone for the first time, I am impressed by the appearance of the person, how he or she makes me feel, how articulate or intelligent the individual is, or what the person is saying that rings true to me. So again, place your order in there, 4, 3, 2 and 1. So just choose the one that's most relevant to you, pop 4 next to it, and then go down from there. If you have any questions, guys, please pop them in the question box as we're going, because we'd like to move on and get this done so that we can move on to the content so that you're getting lots and lots of information that you can implement in your life today. So question 4 is I generally respond to sounds and I am easily distracted by noise. I generally respond to interesting facts and I'm easily distracted by my own thoughts. Sensations, and I'm easily distracted by the way my body feels. And colours, I'm easily distracted by sights around me. And question 5, the last one of these ones in part 1, is when I like a proposal, I tend to say things like, oh, sounds good, or it makes sense, or got it, or looks good. So you can just pop 4, 3, 2 and 1 next to those, whichever order makes sense to you. All right. So now the next one's just going to take a minute for us to do as well. But as I said, it's going to get us really clear on what representational system you are. So if you turn over the page, you can see step 1. Copy the number values from the previous page in the same sequence that you wrote them. So you can see there's number 1, and then it has a KAVAD next to it. So number 1 was I make a choice when. So whatever you can put next to it feels right to me, just put that under K. So if it was a 4, 3, 2 or a 1, you put that next to the first one. And then I hear it and it sounds right to me, whatever number you wrote there, right next to the A. And then obviously the V and the AD. So just take a moment to do that. And we move on to question 2. When discussing an issue, I'm persuaded by. So whatever you wrote under the first one, how convincing the other person sounds, write that number next to A. And then the other 3 as well. Question 3, when I meet someone for the first time, I'm impressed by the appearance. So whatever the first one was, write the number next to the V. And then go down accordingly, just in exactly the same order that they're there. Do the same for 4 and for 5. All right. Now we're going to do just step 2, which what we simply do there is we record each number in the corresponding box and then add each column. So for question 1, what number did you put next to V? And then just put that next to the number 1. For question 2, what number did you put next to the V, which is the second one down? So we're doing step 2 and we're referring to step 1. And then obviously go to question 3, what's the number you wrote next to V there? And to do 4 and 5 as well. And then just simply add all of those totals for those 5 questions, so those 5 numbers, and whack down the total there at the bottom. Pretty simple numbers, so shouldn't need a calculator. Obviously, we're going to do the same for A. So go to question 1. What was the number you wrote next to A? And then question 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the totals. The same for K. And the last one is AD. So I'll just give you a moment to do those. And adding up all of those totals. And then one of those you are going to get a number that is higher than the rest. And that's where you can type into step 3. Now, I think I've been going at a decent speed, but if you're not quite finished yet, if you could just type a little note in to say, hold on a moment, because otherwise we will get what that total for step 3, and then we are very, very clear on what our representational system is. So for me, I'm very kinesthetic, very highly kinesthetic. That is by far my primary representational system. Kylie, what are you?
I'm very kinesthetic. So you probably remember too, if you want to relate this back to the 6 core needs that we were talking about, and we were talking about, and even last week, the 4 energy types. So I'm high ID, which makes me very kinesthetic visual. If you're a dominant style person,
kinesthetic visual.
Yeah. And so if you're a dominant style person, you're very visual.
Sorry, what do you think, Kylie? You're dominant?
Yeah, so a dominant person's very visual. A stability style person is very kinesthetic. And a compliance style person is very auditory digital, so very big thinkers. I hope that helps give you a little bit more relevance to it.
Thank you. That's excellent. And that's the great thing about this, is you're starting to really see the patterns now as we go. So as Kylie just looped it back to 2 of the sessions that we've already had, and you're going to start recognising that happens more and more as we go, because there's not just one system that you can follow, but there's, like Kylie and I said from the start, there's all of these things. And once we learned all of these things, and we're still learning more and more as we go, it just has more of an impact on us getting our lives to exactly where they want to be. Wonderful. Okay, so now I can see from the comments that you're putting in that you're all very clear on what your lead representational system is. So as I said, this is going to be really great for you as we go, because you'll really notice now even more than you did before which ones really resonate with you. All right, come on, gremlins. And our slide will move when it is ready. Okay, so let's look at some of these a little bit closer. There we go. We've got our monkeys. Yeah. Let's look at these a little closer. Now you're clear on your primary representational system. You're going to get this even more. So visual people see the world by constructing or remembering mental images. They respond to what they see, either in their mind or in reality. They also see what you mean. Yeah, they'll use language like that a lot. A visual person will often use words like see, look, gaze, appear, crystal dawn, envision, focus energy, watch, view, show, see. And I've actually included a list of what we call predicates, or these words that we use to describe situations according to our primary representational system in the workbook as well. So there's lots of information on the internet. This is just a nice little list there that you can have. And when you're communicating with people, it might be a team member, or keep it in mind when you're dealing with your clients or those people around you. Start with your family and noticing a bit about them, about the explanation I'm making now and what words they use, and that will lead you to clearly understand what their lead representational system is, and we'll talk about the benefits of that soon. So people who are primarily visual operate from the top half of their bodies. They tend to breathe from the top of their lungs, and they speak quite fast. I found that when I started doing this, that was one of the things that really stood out to me. I started to notice the speed of the way people speak in general conversation. They stand or sit with their bodies erect and their eyes up. They sit in front of the chairs, and appearances are important to them, which is pretty obvious, isn't it, because they're visual people. So they tend to be organised, and they learn by memorising, by associating images with ideas. So, you know, mind maps and mud maps are going to be really, really important to these guys. Instructions are only given verbally. They're going to be more challenged to recall this information. So obviously for a team leader point of view or a trainer point of view, if you're just giving directions to someone verbally that is a high visual person, then they're just not going to recognise or remember or recall that information nearly as well. They're not distracted by noise, and they usually have to see something to capture in their attention or their interest. So how handy is this for you to communicate even better with, you know, as I mentioned, your team members, if you're a leader, or your clients? It's really, really awesome. Auditory people, they listen to the world around them by constructing their own thoughts and feelings based on what they hear. They tell themselves what's happening and how they interpret an event. They hear you, of course. An auditory person often uses words like, you know, I'm all ears, deaf, harmonise, listen, making music, question, resonate, rings a bell, voices an opinion, clear as a bell, quiet, amplified, recall, say, loud, clear. So people who are primary auditory, they breathe from the middle of their chest and often talk to themselves and are very easily distracted by noises. They learn by hearing sequential information, and they like to be told how they're doing a job, and they feel, you know, how they're doing a job, and feel really good about hearing, you know, how they're doing it in a role. They like to hear certain tones and voices of words. They respond to sounds. Consequently, they like music as well, and they love talking on the phone. And kinesthetic people, they feel the world around them. Obviously, it makes sense, doesn't it? They interpret their world through physical contact and feelings, and they have gut feelings. They will sense, or they will get what you mean, is the way that they language their world. And a kinesthetic person will often use words like they catch on, concrete, feel out, grasp, get a handle, hold on, hard, make contact, sensitive, tap into, throw, touch, turn around. People who are primarily kinesthetic typically breathe from the bottom of their lungs. Their stomach is visibly moves up and down, and they speak a bit slower, and they respond to touch and physical rewards really highly, and they learn and memorize by doing something. So something has to feel right for them to opt into it. And I'm very highly kinesthetic, and as Kylie said as well. So when we are actually doing presentations like we're doing today, we are now a lot more aware of not just using kinesthetic language, but using other language as well. So like at the beginning of our presentations, we will always use a lot of language, all of the languages, so that we're making sure that it resonates with everybody. Resonates, there you go, kinesthetic word. Okay, all right. Now, auditory digital person will spend a fair amount of their time talking to themselves. They want to know how things make sense. An auditory digital person will exhibit characteristics of the other major representational systems too, and they will use words like change, conceive, consider, decide, distinct, experience, learn, make sense, motivate, plan, process, sensible, think and understand. Now, people who are primarily auditory digital, or AD, are often listening to their inner dialogue in their heads, and they make a decision using a list of criteria. They can use any or the other representational systems as well, but they're interested in doing something when it makes sense to them. Now, people will gravitate towards their preferred modality or their primary modality. The more you develop an understanding and appreciation for representational systems starting now, then you're going to start understanding those around you even more, and you're going to be able to click with more people more deliberately. You're going to be able to communicate with success more often. I believe the fastest way of starting to really get this included in your life and to start taking steps towards this is by first identifying what you are, which you've already done, so we've already done that step, so tick, and then starting to find people that are like you and get some clear, really, really clear reference points around the words that they use be aware of how they're breathing, you know, how they're sitting in their chairs, the speed of their conversation, that type of thing. And many people, as we said, you know, we like people that are like ourselves. So by recognizing something that's similar to ourselves, it helps a lot of people learn much quicker. So start to, you already know what you are yourself. Start looking around for people that are like you. And as you're doing this, it just becomes so much clearer even faster. So as you do this, you'll see for yourself, visual, the more you notice this, you will get this even louder and more clear, which would be an audio an example there. Or you could say it would be more, you'll be more easily able to sink your teeth into this, which would be kinesthetic. Or it would be effortlessly be able to pay attention to the representational systems, AD. So just different ways of explaining that one sentence about understanding this in different languages. You can see how easy it is to lend your language to other representational systems. So listen up to the words that you use, the phrases, your breathing and so on. And now we are seeing the words that we use around us. And that's really fantastic, and it is a really, really important way of developing rapport with people. And as we get even clearer on that, we're going to be able to get people to know people even better. But in saying that, words aren't the only way of communicating. So as you can see in front of us now, there is a slide about language shapes your communication. Now, I've done lots of communication training as a participant and a trainer, and I've seen this, words represent 7% of communication, nonverbal 55, tone 38, about 1,000 times. But it was only really that when I looked at it like this that it actually made sense. I mean, I understood it before, but it was sort of, I guess because you hear it so often, it becomes a little bit boring. But it's super, super relevant here because language, think about it. Language was created so humans could communicate more effectively with each other to get their point across, right? So why, with all of the words that are available to us in every single language, do we have so many problems communicating with people? But people are always surprised and frustrated when their message is not understood, even when they believe they've chosen exactly the right words. So this communication breakdown that happens through when we're dealing with people, it's best explained by looking at this slide. Obviously the words we've been using, so up until now we've been heavily talking about words, which is super relevant, but it only really makes up 7% of the whole communication model. The tone is 38, and non-verbals, body language, the breathing rate and all of those things, 55%. So obviously you can see language is important, but the others are super important. So by developing a skill of rapport, individuals no longer need to rely just on the communicating a message via words. As rapport, by using great rapport or developing great rapport, all of the levels of communication will be used, and you'll become familiar with them when you're dealing with other people and groups of people. And indeed, the gift of rapport far exceeds the gift of the gab, as you can see from this communication model. People like people that are like themselves. So it absolutely makes sense that the keys to creating rapport is matching and mirroring, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Matching and mirroring is such a subtle and undetectable way that the other person can only recognize unconsciously. Now, Kylie and I have been talking about the unconscious mind a lot, and it is just so powerful. I get excited whenever I talk about the unconscious mind. Now, deep rapport makes communicator massively persuasive on a conscious and also an unconscious level. So as we said, Milton Erickson, I mentioned before, is a world-renowned psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, and he revolutionized Western psychotherapy. And he states everything is possible in the presence of rapport. And what he was talking about, being a psychologist and a psychiatrist, is that he, by developing a deep level of rapport with people, he's actually able to help them create change in their life much faster. Now, Kylie and I are both coaches. We coach business people and executives, and also do some life coaching. I think both of us. I know I certainly do. And obviously, when you develop that deep level of rapport with people, there's that trust that's developed, and they're able to feel really at ease with you, and that allows them to move into the changes that they need to make so much faster. But if you're not a coach, you're someone working in customer service or sales, or you're a team leader, this is all exactly just as relevant for you. So it's just so super important. So rapport is established by matching and mirroring. Now matching is doing something that the other person is doing. So let's just say you're sitting down having a coffee with somebody, but in the reverse image. So they take a sip of their coffee, you would take a sip of your coffee as well. Mirroring is being the mirror image of somebody. So if one person raises their right hand, you would raise their left, your left, so that it's exactly as if you were looking in a mirror. Matching is more subtle than mirroring, but mirroring creates a deeper rapport. Now, on the list on the PowerPoint here, we can see that there's all the features of physiology, tonality, and words can be matched and mirrored to a certain extent to help us establish rapport. Now, I read a metaphor recently about building rapport. If you purchased a plot of land and the council told you that you can purchase the land, but you can't actually build anything on it. If they said that to you, that would really limit the options for you for building a house or an office or doing anything else, really, wouldn't it? It really limits the opportunities you have on that land. Now, the same is true with building rapport. If you build a high level of rapport, a deep level of rapport with somebody, then it can lead to a solid friendship or really strong business alliances, and loyal, happy customers that just keep on coming back. So when you're building rapport, you have the option to build that strong foundation or to just let the relationship be. But it's always good to have those options. So matching and mirroring establishes a deep level of rapport when done well. It's so powerful as you get to a state of what we call leading the person you're dealing with. Now, I don't know if you've heard of the concepts of pacing and leading before, but pacing involves matching somebody for a while, going at their pace, until you've gained enough rapport with them that you can slowly start to change what they're doing, that is leading, and they start to follow you. So pacing and leading depends on the quality of rapport that you've built up. If you go too fast or too abruptly, you'll break the rapport. I spoke to someone recently that was saying that they were uncomfortable with the idea of leading people. They thought that it was manipulative and controlling. And I've had this conversation with a couple of people. But what you'll notice is when you create a deep level of rapport or you enter into that deeper relationship with someone, if you're doing it from the intention of control or manipulation, I mean, look, people are smart and they're going to know that you're taking the piss. Or I guess I just said that. Yes, I did. Remember that rapport is a two-way street. You know, it's a relationship between two people. And when we say that, you know, by pacing someone in order to lead them, you're joining their reality, you're joining their worlds, you're understanding and appreciating them on a deeper level than you did before. And this is only actually possible and can only be done effectively by respecting them and where they're coming from. And that is not from the intention of manipulation or control. So a really simple way to think about pacing and leading, which is just, you know, the ultimate in developing rapport, is to imagine if you're walking with somebody, just say you're walking along the road with somebody. If you're walking too fast, they'll have to hurry to keep up. If you're going too slow, then they'll feel like they're dawdling. Either way, they're the ones that are going to have to make the effort. Now, if you want to change someone's speed, the first thing you need to do is walk alongside them at their pace for a while. That is, you're matching what they're doing in terms of speed and physiology and so on. But at a deeper level, you are signaling respect for their model of the world and your willingness to enter into their world. So once you have a rapport, you can then change your pace to one that suits you better. So obviously if you wanted to speed it up or slow it down, you can, once you've developed that level of rapport, you can start to do that in a totally natural way. Now, in a business sense, imagine this when you're talking to a client, or you need them to be comfortable enough with you that they can discuss what they actually need from you. You know, they need to be comfortable with you to be able to tell you how you can give them even more value. Now, I remember when I was working as a team leader for American Express, one of my team members came up to me one day really, really upset about something that happened at work. She was breathing super fast, she was really emotional, and she wasn't able to tell me what was going on because she was so emotional. Now, without her telling me what had happened, I was actually unable to help her, and I was also due in a meeting within, the next 5 to 10 minutes. So I needed to be super effective with this. I mean, I could have sat down, taken her to an office and spent the next half hour calming her down and so on. I simply didn't have the time. As far as my priorities was to look after my team, but I was also due in a very important meeting. So I immediately deliberately paced her with her fast, short breathing, and as I was speaking to her. And over the next few minutes, I gently slowed, as I checked with her and I could check that she was in rapport with me, I gently slowed down my breathing and my speaking speed. I calibrated her, which means I was checking with her. I was checking that she was with me before I slowed down to that next level. And her breathing started to slow down after a while. And she was able to calm down enough to explain to me what was going on. And I could quickly put the steps into place to be able to assist her before I went to my meeting. Now, this wouldn't have been possible in the time frame that I had without pacing and leading her. There was absolutely no way that I would have been able to do that. So we can match and mirror physiology wherever relevant. As you can see from the slide, the physiology that we can do is, or should I say we can match and mirror, is the posture of somebody, the facial expressions, blinking, the gestures that they give, are they a hands person or do they have their hands still, and their breathing, which we've discussed a couple of times. About posture, just talking about that, I was actually sitting with a man recently in a business scenario where we were just sitting in two chairs sort of facing each other at a like 45-degree angle. And he was sitting there, and I wanted to develop instant rapport with this guy. So I'm matching matching and mirroring him. And I was sitting there, matching his breath and starting to match the words that he was using. And he's sitting there with his legs right apart, like a real man with his legs right apart. Now, I'm wearing a dress, and it's not suitable for me to match his posture in this case. So you really need to be aware of that. Is in that situation, had I have sat like him, to match him, then that would have been completely inappropriate and probably wouldn't have helped develop rapport, or maybe a type of rapport that I wasn't after at all. Now, so instead of actually copying the way that he was sitting with his legs, instead I sat with my arms wide open. So I was definitely matching him in a certain way. It wasn't exactly what he was doing, but it was clearly going to be appropriate for me to spread my legs. So I did it with my arms, and it still achieves a similar outcome. The person is unconsciously noticing the similarities about you, and that's what this is all about. So tonality is the second box on the slide in front of us, and it's the speed and volume, the tone that you use. A lot of Australians, when we're speaking, we use like that questioning tonality where the tone goes up at the end of every sentence. Or using more of a command tone if you're needing to instruct a person to do something, where the tone is just simply goes down at the end. Words we've already discussed, the predicates, which is the list in your workbook, and also the keywords that you could use. Also with words you can use common experiences to develop rapport. One of the ones I use all the time is travel, but also it says there content chunks. So you know how some people talk and they're always focused on the big picture and others are focused on the detail? That's one of the ways that you can focus, or you can use that to build rapport. Now, funnily enough, Kylie is a massive chunk person. She's always focused on the big picture, and I'm focused on the detail. So it actually works really, really well when we're working together, because she's always got the big vision and I'm always the details person. So we work on so many things together that it's really awesome the way it works. But in saying that, sometimes we can get a bit of frustration fitting in because we're both focusing on different things. So we always just remind each other and, obviously check in with ourselves and the person we're developing rapport with. So yeah, that's a cool one for you to know, and how relevant it is. And you know, even Carly and I, after using this for such a long time, you know, we still use it very deliberately. So how are you going to know, everybody, if somebody is actually in rapport with you? You know, how are you actually going to know? Well, you're going to get that general feeling of that click. You know, how you know if they're experiencing the same rapport as you. I mean, you get the click. What do they get? You need to use your sensory acuity. Now, this means you need to be present in the moment and have a deep awareness of what's going on around you. Now, you're going to notice things like when people experience rapport, you notice changes about them. You may notice, can be very, very subtle in some people and quite obvious in others, a colour shift. So by you watching the client and being present with them and using your sensory acuity, you can calibrate and really notice a shift in their skin colour from light to dark. Obviously for yourself, you know that you'll get an internal feeling, could be a feeling of butterflies or excitement. And one thing that I get all the time is the question of familiarity. So a person will ask you, oh, have I met you before? Or are you a Librian? Or, you know, you remind me so much of my favourite cousin. And that's something that explains a deep level of rapport. I never understood that until I got this, so that's cool. And obviously, if you are able to lead somebody, then indeed that's the whole purpose of creating rapport, is to establish a level of trust and responsiveness to the point where you can lead that person internally and therefore lead them to where you need them to be as far as, you know, leading the conversation that you're in, if you're a leader with them, or working in customer service and so on. So they're all indicators of rapport. But ultimately, a lot of people just get that real click feeling. So we've discussed so far how we language our own world to make it the way it is, and how we can use language and rapport to create or help create other people's lives as well, so to understand about other people. Now, how do we use language to create change? Now, I'm going to actually touch on a couple of concepts that we have touched on before, and one of the ones here is focus on what you get. Now, I know we have touched on this before, but I wanted to touch on it from a different point of view today. So what you focus on is what you get is, you know, scientifically proven that, you know, the reticular activation system in our mind allows us to take cues from what we talk about, what we think about, as to what we're going to focus on. So it's what you focus on is what you get, and you will find evidence of to the exclusion of everything else. So this works like a friend of mine was telling me the other day that she joined the gym like a month or so ago, and she's committed to going to the gym 3 times a week. And she was saying to me, it's like the universe is out there reminding me of my goals to go to the gym 3 times a week. So there's a new billboard up where I drive to work. And there's a new fitness section in the newspaper. And she was saying all of these things that are brand new that she's now noticing that weren't there before. Now, interestingly enough, I live in the same area as her, and I know very well that in that newspaper there's always been a fitness section, and on that billboard there's always been an ad for the gym. She's just never noticed them before because she's never been focused on it. But her mind is now focusing on it, yeah? And I mean, we've all seen examples of this, you know, with if we've bought a car, we notice all the cars around us the same and so on. So this just demonstrates how your mind operates. It looks for what you're telling it to focus on, and it's going towards proving you're right. So if you're going to focus on the stresses in life, you're going to experience more of those. If you're focusing on what's hard and your ill health and how crappy your team is, then that's what you're going to get. But instead, if you start languaging your word around the solutions and what you do want to achieve in your world, then that is also what you are going to get. So start thinking about the words that you are using in your world, and you're going to very quickly notice that becomes your reality. A really quick example of a guy I used to work with over the last about 6 months. Every single Monday morning I come in and I say, "Hi Mark, how are you today?" And he goes, "Well, I made it through another weekend, didn't die of a heart attack." That's the way he starts every Monday morning, because he's in an office near mine. And it always amazes me. Now, after he'd been working at the business that we do some contracting on for about 3 months, guess what? he had actually he didn't have a heart attack, he had a stroke. And he said after, he got better and came back to work, and he said, oh, no, my dad had a stroke and his dad had strokes and so on. And, I knew I was going to have a stroke. And I said to him, of course you knew you were going to have a stroke because you talk about it. You talk about, oh, you didn't die over the weekend, every single weekend. So he's constantly bringing his focus around that. His language became his reality. Now, this model here is, I love this model, because what it is in the middle you can see your reality. And it says, your thoughts create your reality. What's your thoughts? Because your thoughts become your words. Your words become your actions. Your actions become your habits, and your habits are your reality. Now think about that for a moment. Now today we're really focusing on language and the words that we're using. So think about an area of your life or a reality in a particular part of your life where you're not getting the results that you want. And think about if you were sitting down with a cup of coffee with a really good friend of yours right now, what words would you be using to describe that situation? I'm betting that they're probably going to be quite negative. Yeah? And that is creating, in addition, nothing works in isolation, but, your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your habits are creating your reality around that particular situation. So what can you do? How can you reframe that? How can you change that to be more positive? Jot down a couple of words now that you can deliberately change about that situation, and notice as you consistently start to change those words, start to notice how much of a positive effect they have around that part of your world. Now, as I said, nothing happens in isolation. You can also change your thoughts and your actions and your habits, but words are such an obvious thing to us, so it's really important that you select your words carefully. Now, a great way that you can create change in this area is by using affirmations. Replacing the things you say over and over in your mind, replacing the old negative crappy language with more positive, resourceful, solution-based saying. If you think about what we just talked about, what you focus on, what you get, it makes complete sense. Now, Louise Hay is a super famous, amazing woman that really believes in affirmations. And she says to people to say the positive affirmations about 400 times a day. 400 times a day. And she always says, people always say, that's too many, that's too many. And she simply replies, how many negative things do you say to yourself each day? 400 at least. So by replacing the negative with the positive, you're going to change your reality. John DeMartini is this massive self-improvement guru that's been in Melbourne just recently, and I just love him. He's not very good looking, but I tell you what, he's an amazing guy. And one of his affirmations is, the universe is my playground. The world is my home, and every country is another room of my house. Now, one of the great things about that, he's said that affirmation for years. You know where this guy lives? He lives on a ship called the World that travels around the world all of the time. He doesn't actually have a house, except he lives on this. So his affirmation, the universe is my playground, the world is my home, and every country is another room in my house, that's his reality, isn't it? And let me tell you, you can't live on that ship unless you have a whole bunch of moolah. So there's some great ways that you can use your language to create your world. And obviously, guys, if we're going to choose how to create our world, our career, our business, our jobs, then why in the hell wouldn't we choose something that's going to be positive and move us forward? Now, the last thing we're going to talk about today is another concept we have discussed before, cause and effect, which is all about being above the line or below the line thinking, about accepting responsibility for your life and the results that you do and do not have. So basically, this is all about the effect of what happens. You're either at the effect of what happens in your life, or you are going to cause the things that happen in your life. And let me tell you, obviously being a cause is a lot more resourceful and empowering for you. So how do we use this around language? Well, when we don't accept responsibility in whichever part of the life you're talking about, then you can't actually make any changes. You either choose to take responsibility, or you blame others and you give your power away. If you're blaming, then you're never going to take charge of that situation, and you can never change the situation. All you can do I know this is a hard reality, but all you can actually do is whinge about it and give excuses for why you can't achieve the things that you can't achieve. So there's only one or the other. So when you're blaming others, you're giving that power away. You can't make changes. All you can do is whinge. Now, one of the common ways that we do this, give our power away, is by speaking in the third person a lot. We use plural, you or we, etc. And people do this all the time by saying that you know when you're having a bad day and you this, but actually they're talking about themselves. Or you know when you do this, you understand what I'm saying, you're getting this. We do that quite often with our language, and when we're talking to our friends and so on, and we put them in a scenario, it's like, hang on, keep your own crap, guys. So take responsibility for your own situation. So this is a really simple way of giving away your power, of being an effect, and not accepting responsibility for your own crap. So if you were saying something like, you should, maybe now it can become, I should, because really you are talking about you. That's what we do becomes, that's what I do. And you always becomes, I always. So some really simple things that you can do to make some changes and start moving your life even more to where you want it to be. Okay, 3 keys of today for your learnings. What are the 3 things that really jump out to you, that really were crystal clear to you, really made you feel that you knew what was going on? Jot those down in front of you on a piece of paper right now. And just think for one moment, before we finish up, of how you're going to implement those into your life, your career, your business, your role, your family, over the next couple of weeks and into your future. And get really clear on the changes that that's going to make and the benefits that that's going to make to you immediately. Thank you very much for your time today. If you're interested in taking this to the next step, Kylie, would you like to have a chat about how we can do that?
Thanks, Joe. Great source of information webinar. Even I was getting stuff out of it, and we're here teaching it to everyone. So thanks, Joe. You did an awesome job. So the next steps, as always, each week is a choice session for you, so we can help you gain even greater insights into what it is that you're wanting to achieve. So we have a website. If you just want to go to the website, and when Joe, my lovely screen lady,
Every week I do that.
So it's a free 30-minute choice session. So we are limited to 20 positions. It's not a scarcity tactic. It's just we want to make sure that we're getting everyone in, and as our business is growing, we need to account for all the time that we're spending. So 20 positions is what we have available for you. So we really appreciate that people have been jumping on board and are getting some insights. As Joe mentioned at the start, and we're getting some fabulous feedback. So if you go to www.designermindset.com.au/self-mastery/, you'll be able to log on and register for your 30-minute choice session with either myself or Joe. You can choose if you like. It's a choice session, so you can choose us too.
Yeah, it's all about choice.
Yeah. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions, it is 10:30, so we're really conscious of your time. So if there are any questions, pop them through. We'll hang around for a couple of minutes. Joe, is there anything else that you need to add about today?
No, thank you very much, everybody. It was great to get your feedback through the sessions. And Kylie, thank you very much for your time today and organising all the back office stuff for this too. Thanks, it's fantastic.
This is how we work perfectly together, everyone. Joe's really great at all the detail, but I'm doing all the detail office stuff at the moment. So I'm stretching my muscles around the 4 energy types. So yesterday with the gremlins in our computers, that was me, as you probably can tell. So it's really fun, and we have so much fun with this between ourselves, even just as Joe mentioned before this webinar, talking about actually we're working on some projects that we have coming up and some trainings yesterday, and we're talking about how I'm very visionary high level and Joe's very into the detail, and we came together with all these ideas at different levels, but it worked perfectly to talk it through. So we hope you're having as much fun practicing all of the stuff that you're learning as well with people close to you.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. If there's no questions, anybody, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else to add, Kylie?
I'm good, thank you. So have a great day.
All right.
Great week.
Thank you very much for your time.